title of my message today, someone say this, the road less traveled. Last week, I told a story that my friend and me, we were on a road trip. And who's ever been on a road trip before? And we were driving to a monastery in Nebraska. And how we had two roads that we had an option to go on. Who was here last week? If you were here last week, you're going to love this. If you are new to this series, it's going to impact you a lot. And we were on this road, and I remember there was a bend in the curve, and the road we were on was wide. It was like a pseudo paved road. Have you ever seen that before? It wasn't like quite paved, but maybe it was paved at one time. But it was a road. It looked like people had gone on it. And then I remember there was this second off ramp, like of a turning off that went down to the left, and there was a bunch of tree branches, and the map told us to go that road, but we didn't want to be honest, because it looked a little sketchy. And I remember that we took we convinced ourselves to take the regular road, and my friend and I were driving, and we were in a location where we did not have GPS, and so I never forget we were 30 minutes down that road by the time our phones went back on, and we realized we had been driving in the wrong direction. And so the concept of this series, After the Way, is what road do we choose in life? And where do the roads that we choose lead to? I remember that I had a coach one time. This was 8th to 9th grade. Who's ever been there before? It's like a crazy age. And I remember my mother put me in this camp for basketball. And we went to San Margarita Catholic High School, which I would later go on to go to school there. But they had like a camp where we would go and play basketball, and they had kids from everywhere. And I remember that the coach was on it. He was like a D1, D2 championship coach. He was scary. Have you ever seen a scary coach before? He was scary, I'm not gonna lie. And he was yelling at people, and he was intense, to say the least. And I remember that it was like a 2-week camp, and we started, and the day number 1 was all fundamentals. Because if you played basketball, a lot of basketball is fundamentals. And so it was footwork for the first 4 hours. And then it was pivoting, and then it was dribbling, and so it was all fundamentals the first day. I remember it was a 2-week camp. And then the next day, it was all fundamentals again. And then the next day, it was all fundamentals again. And it started to throw some of us off. So I remember one of my friends who was with me, if you ever play basketball, there's good basketball players and there's fancy basketball players. Have you ever seen this? Who's like doing all these tricks and stuff. And so my friend started kind of clowning around and breaking from the fundamentals, because I think he was bored. And he was young, and I remember the coach got like real mad at him, and he kept drilling these like fundamentals. It was like, and so I remember by day 12, I was starting to get a little frustrated, and I asked him, I said, Coach, when do we get to do the fun stuff? Like, when do we get to do like some fun activities? And he said, Stefan, he goes, the fundamentals are the fun things. And I'll never forget this because he was one of the best coaches in the state. They won championships. He had coached some of the best basketball high school kids that had gone on to UCLA, USC, but it was so interesting. He was the coach of fundamentals. And so I think that's how Jesus is with us. I think when Jesus calls us, and when he calls us into discipleship, he's calling us into getting really good at the fundamentals of our faith. I really believe this. I think that part of the reason why sometimes discipleship can be hard, the path of Jesus. It's not hard on purpose. It's not that like God puts rules in our way. It can be hard because it's specific. Because it requires certain actions. It requires certain habits. It requires certain ways to think and to operate in the world. Kind of like basketball. Is that there are fundamentals to our faith. And when we get the fundamentals right, everything else in our lives will fall into place. It's real interesting. And so the first point of my message is this. And this is Matthew 7:13 through 14 that we've been reading. And this is Jesus, and he says, "Enter the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction. Many enter through it, but small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life." Someone say life. "And only few find it." You know, it's interesting that Scripture uses the term destruction because I think it's so much easier to destroy something than build it. I remember when I was a kid, I made we were at the beach one time, and I built a sandcastle, and I worked for like 7 hours. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen a kid do that? I mean, I was measuring things. It was like a multi-tower. It was wild. You should have seen it. It was incredible what I had built. And I remember that we were building and building. We were on vacation in the Miramar in Santa Barbara. And I never forget this. Is by the end of the day, you know, tides start going up, and I built my little castle a little too close to the water. Has that ever happened to you? And I remember this wave just came and just melted this castle I had built, and I was distraught. I was sad. And I think that's how life is. I think it takes time to build, but it's easy to destroy something. I think there's such a powerful lesson. You know, one of the things that Jesus has is everything he says is like multi-layered. This is why I'm such a big believer of learning Scripture, because you can read a Scripture at 22 and then read it at 34, and it could mean something totally different. And it's not because the meaning changed. It's because you're at a season of your life where you see another element of that truth. Does that make sense? And so sometimes you can read a Scripture, and it can be true in like 5 ways. Have you ever noticed this? It's really cool. And so that's one of the things that's why Scripture is so important, is because Scripture is the antidote of what we need before we know we need it. It really is. You could learn something one day, and in 10 years, go back and say, God is teaching me something. I don't know what it is. I've heard that verse a million times. But man, it's like speaking to me in a new way. And so I love this verse for this reason, because I think it says that the wide is the gate and broad is the road to destruction. It's so easy to destroy something. I read in my notes, there's 100 ways to miss, only a few ways to hit. I was, for those of you who do not know, I like to cook, but I do not like to bake. Because cooking is easy. You can fudge cooking. You can make cooking work. You could throw something in and just make that gravy magically like come together. Come on, somebody. But baking is like roulette. Like if you mess up on step 3 and there's 64 steps, you are done, my friend. Like that cake ain't gonna rise. That souffle is gonna explode. It ain't gonna caramel correctly. So I remember my father, who's watching right now, he's a really good baker, and he has like almost like a divine grace for it. It really is a spiritual gift. I think it's a 6-fold ministry called Patience in the Kitchen, because you have like the office, you have like prophecy, gift of healing, come on, somebody, like, you know, the teacher, and then it's like grace while cooking. It's in there. I don't have it. Skip me. I got one or two of the other five, but that one just skipped me straight over. It's just not a gift. It's not a gift. My wife makes fun of me. She goes, you don't want to cook with Stefan. You want your station away from Stefan. Because there's only a few things in life that really bug me. One, if a piece of technology doesn't work, I'll go from 0 to 100 like so fast. Like I don't know what it is. I'm the most patient. I can be so patient. People know me really well. My friend Maxim told me once. He goes, "You are the smoothest, charismatic I've ever met." He goes, "You're the most level, calm, charismatic. Nothing bugs you, except if my phone doesn't work or something doesn't work in the kitchen." Those are my only two. The Lord is still working on me. We have salvation, but we change daily. God, guys, this is a process. This isn't. I'm telling you now, it doesn't happen overnight. You should see it. It's not good. But what am I saying, Pastor Stefan? I'm saying that destruction is easy, but building takes discipleship. You know, to build anything takes time. Takes repetition. I've had this revelation recently, just even as a business owner. So if you are a business owner in here, you'll get this. When I started in business, I kept thinking that having lots of projects was a good thing. I had one project here and then a project over there, and I was invited to do something here. Have you ever gone through that? You're just so excited that like people are inviting you to things. But then over time you realize, oh, all the value I'm creating is by doing one thing really well. So like maybe I should limit the distractions and focus on doing one thing really, really well, and then get really good at it, and then keep growing what I do really, really well. And so it's interesting. You will never meet a hyper successful person in the area of profession that has 22 things going on. It will never happen. Almost always, they'll have one thing that's producing 80% of their value, and then out of that, they might have some opportunities, but it's driven by the one thing. Discipleship is like that. It's driven by fundamentals. It's driven by what we do every day. That's what Jesus was trying to get us. Is he was trying to show us that there are many ways, there are an infinite amount of ways to stay in the same place. There are many ways not to see healing or not to see transformation. I like to think about this. There are many ways to blow up a marriage. There are many ways to break a business. There are many ways you can offend somebody. There's an infinite amount of ways. But there's only a few ways to be profitable in your business. There's only a few ways to have a successful marriage. There's only I say it for men, there's only a couple moves you need to know as a guy to have a girlfriend. Only a few. Shower. Come on, somebody. Ask her out. Take her to dinner. Pay for it. Have something to talk about. Ask questions. It's only a few. You don't need to know advanced chemistry. It's just a few. That's how it is in life. Isn't this interesting? To really change your life. Because I think so often in faith we feel like me when in that basketball camp, we're always looking for like the advanced move. Like the hack, what I used to call like the Jedi skill. Like when I was a kid, there were certain people growing up who were in church space, and they were so gifted. We had a friend named, he might be watching, Hulk. His name was Hulkon. He was a Christian guy, and he always had a word for everybody. The guy, but he was like real good. You know exactly. But when I was 7, I was like, this guy's a Jedi. Like he doesn't. He's like, these are not the droids you're looking for. Like we're always looking for, you know what I mean? Like the special secret sauce. But really, it's a game of fundamentals. It is. It's a game of choosing to love on the day that you need to be loved. It's a game of showing up when you don't feel like you want to show up. It's a game of being generous when you need someone to be generous to you. It's a game of having faith even when you don't feel like it. You know, the thing about faith that's so cool is faith is something that we have when we don't know. I think like we so forget this. I think so many of us would love to have faith on our best day. Like we know exactly where we're headed and we're like, I got faith. Faith comes when we don't have it all figured out. Faith comes when you're in the dark and you don't know if there's going to be ground in the next step you take. You don't know if the love of Jesus extends to your shame. You don't know if his faithfulness will extend to your mess that you created. You don't know if his word is going to be correct and applicable in this season. That's what faith is. Faith is with the process of us when we say yes. When we say yes to him, when we don't know. And discipleship is the process of taking that step in the dark and then discovering him there. Discovering his hand as it takes yours. Discovering his voice that tells you you're not in the dark alone. Discovering his peace. That even though you might be in an unknown place, for some reason you know, and even though you can't see, you know he can see. And his voice doesn't seem very nervous. So then you're able to have some peace. Isn't that beautiful? And so Jesus knows this, and so he's calling us to him. And he's saying, I am the truth. I am the truth. The truth is, it's not general, it's specific. It's not a general truth, it's a specific truth. Does that make sense? It doesn't apply just to random people, it applies to you. It won't just help somebody, it'll help your family. It's specific. Everything Jesus does is specific. Every person he talks to, every person he heals, every move he makes. Jesus doesn't make one step that was general. It was all specific. All specific. I want to read this, point number 2. This is John 14:6. It says, Jesus answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And I want to say this, that the thing about, one of the things Jesus is telling us is that he's saying that there aren't many paths up the same mountain. This is interesting. Stay with me for about 4 minutes, because I think this will really, you know, I had a friend who always said that. He would always say, you've heard it, everyone's heard it, is that he would say, there are many paths to get to God. There are many paths to get to God. And the way people describe it, it's like there's one mountain and God's at the top, and then there's all these paths up there. And I don't think that's true. I think a better way to think about it is that I think there are many paths of many mountains. Because I think that what Jesus claims is specific. You know, I studied world religions in graduate school, and I remember I would always hear people say that, and then you actually read about Buddhism, and I would say, you know, Buddhism has like a different mountain. There's like a completely different goal that like Buddhism has. Or I'd read about Islam, and I would say, you know, Islam has like a completely different goal than like Christians have. Like, and you just go to Sikhism, you go down the list, secularism. It's a completely different goal. And when I began to hear Christians say that, I started thinking, I'm like, do any Christians actually like know? Like, are they like reading the claims of Christianity? Because the claims of Christianity, they're just specific. It's a story about a God who creates the world out of love, and then he's redeeming that world through his son Jesus for the purpose of restoring bodies, restoring us, restoring creation. One of the things in other words of saying this is Christianity is about becoming human. It's a restoration project of what it means to be a human being. So in Christianity, you're called to love. You're called to joy, all the range of human emotions. You're called to brotherhood, sisterhood, relationship. It's a project about redeeming creation. Buddhism, on the other hand, is not. If you read about nirvana or what they call going to heaven, it's actually not going to heaven. It's getting rid of all the things that make you human and saying yes to transcendence. So it's literally like getting rid of joy. Getting rid of human love, because that's too low. You see, it's about transcending. Does that make it's about escaping humanity. It's about going to the world of the eternal, not the. Does that make sense? So it's like a different. It's just a different mountain. It's like a different game. There's a different thing that's happening. Does that make sense? And so one of the things that's so beautiful about Jesus is he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I think he means that specifically. Jesus' path, it's his path. It's not a generic path. It's not any path. That's what I think he was saying. There are 100 ways to live your life. To use my uncle's language, there are hundreds of good ideas, but there's only one God idea for your life. There's only one path that will lead to the restoration of your family. There's only one path that's going to break generational curses. There's only one path where you're going to discover all the things I put in you. There are many ways to live. I think Jesus is like just describing it. He's just saying there's 100 good ideas, but there's only one God idea. There's only one path where everything gets better. There's only one path where you draw nearer to him. He's the way, the truth, and the life. Do you know how incredible that is? I think one of the hardest things that we have in the modern world is knowing where to go. I think about this a lot. And this is just me thinking, so I'm going to ask you to join me for a second. Because sometimes I think about things too much. And I often think about this. This is the fact I literally think about all the time. In our phones today, you have an infinite amount of knowledge. Literally in your iPhone or Android, you can read any book ever written. 1,000 years ago in Europe, the largest library in Great Britain was 600 books. 90% of priests could not read. And most parishes didn't even have a copy of the Bible. Because language was so expensive to produce. Everything had to be done by hand. It wasn't until the Gutenberg press where you start to see the costs of producing drop by 100%. It was like 1 out of 100, like literally. Like we live in a time of the abundance of knowledge. So one of the things that is negative about that is that it actually produces anxiety because there are too many paths that people could take. There's a really interesting book that I use a lot because we build coaching programs for my company. And one of the downsides of the self-improvement world is that there are 50 ways to do anything. And so instead of there being like one way to manage your calendar, there's 200 ways. And by the way, every day on Instagram, I'm going to show you 10 more calendars on how to do it. Well, what that actually does is it produces a lot of anxiousness in people because they always feel like they're failing. This is really interesting. And so what has happened in the area of publishing and coaching is that the barrier of entry of people actually using coaching programs has dramatically decreased. Did you know that only 1 out of 10 books that are sold, 1 person will finish that book? And they know that because when you buy an ebook, they track how you read. So they know when people quit. Another hack that you'll see in a coaching program is that they will try to give you on the first lesson that you have in any program. Who's ever done a coaching program, like a popular one or a course or whatever? You'll always notice that on the first day, they will try to give you a win within 5 minutes. Because they have found that if you don't experience a win within 5 minutes, like if they give you a task that's too big, you'll quit and never do the coaching program, even if you pay thousands of dollars. Isn't that interesting? It's because we're so bombarded with options that like our brains like don't know what to do. And so I think it's really important, and I think it's a beautiful thing. And I look back to this verse all the time in my own life. Because there are so many ways to live your life, but there's one road that leads to Jesus. You know how incredible, how big of a gift that is? Because we live in a world where there's 100 roads to everywhere, all the time, and all roads change all the time. But we can know and have peace that if we practice the fundamentals of faith, we'll experience Jesus in our lives. It's really cool. There is no like advance behind the curtain thing. If you want to know Jesus, it just actually comes down to you spending time with him. It's like a relationship. I remember when I was younger, that was when all those books were coming out about like the pickup artists. Have you ever seen? I remember for like 6 years, guys would just like come together 2022, and they had like 55 theories on how to get a date. Every guy's staring at me. They're like, don't tell them. Don't tell them. And it like really just comes down. The research shows, it's interesting. If you're a single male and you want to get a date, you want to have a relationship, it comes down to 2 things, just 2: competency and generosity. The 2 things that women are most attracted to are competency, your ability to produce value and put yourself together and orient yourself in the world, that you're reliable, and generosity, that you'll share what you create. That's why I don't think it's a good idea to get rid of chivalry, because young people don't actually know it. They're actually like, they're playing out that relationship in a first date when a guy goes and asks the girl out and then dresses up and then pays. He's showing, I can make a reservation. I'm capable to ask you out. I can put on I can look good. I can treat you well. I can listen to you. I can give you compliments. And I can pay for it. Does that make sense? But if you read that book, The Game, it's like 59 steps to get a date. Oh my Lord. It's fundamentals. Everything comes down to fundamentals. I'm telling you. I want to read this, point number 3. Who's enjoying today? Yeah. Small course corrections can change your final destination. Matthew 4:17. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near. Discipleship is made of small choices. But it's small choices that lead to big things. You know, it's interesting. I fly a lot. I grew up flying. I grew up sitting in flights. Let me paraphrase that. I met someone the other day who goes, I fly a lot. I go, oh, that's cool. And he goes, yeah, I got my license. I was like, oh, I don't do that. That's a different. I just attend. I buy a ticket and show up. I don't know how it all works. Yeah, it's not. Have you ever had that where like the pilot would tell you the route? Yeah, and you're in the back and you're like, yeah, that's fine. Whatever works. As long as we get to Phoenix. I don't mind. Yeah. I think it's like that in life. I think that they're it's interesting when you fly, if 1 degree off over 1,000 miles, you're like on a different continent. It's super interesting. And then Callie, if you want to come up. I think that's how discipleship is. And I don't say that because I don't say that to scare you. Like, ooh, like 1 degree off, you're going to end up nowhere. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's in the little things that produce all the results. It's in the little things. It's in following Jesus daily. It's in waking up every morning as I ride in the way and asking God, what do you have to show me today? What do you have to show me today? I know what I need, but I also don't know what I need. I know where I'm going, but I also kind of don't know where I'm going. I know who I am, but I also kind of don't know who I am. Who's ever been there? And then being able to go to him and then have him pour into you. And say, I told that story last week. I was at a conference in Miami not that long ago. And they said, they had everyone get up and they said, whatever miracle you need, begin to pray for it. And I sat there for 30 seconds. And I just said, God, what miracle do you think I need? And then teach me how to pray for that. Because I think I know what I need. But you know what I need. I'm going to just practice listening to you a little bit. That's fundamentals. I remember that basketball camp. It's interesting. I played basketball maybe a few years ago. I went out with some friends. And I got there a little early. Who's ever done that? My friends were getting there. And it was interesting. Without even thinking, I hit the baseline and started to run that drill that I learned in that camp. And I think that's how discipleship's like. When we start practicing our faith, there's going to be a moment in your life where something is going to come out of nowhere. And if you've been praying every day, you're not even going to think. You're going to grab the person's hand next to you and say, you know what we need to do? We need to go to God. This is what we do when we don't know. Or maybe it might be something else. When I don't know what to do, I serve. I just get into it. It's really interesting when you do that. You just go in on him. I remember it was 4 or 5 years ago, we got some really bad news as a family, medical stuff, and it really hit me. You ever experience something hit you so hard that like you can't contain it? You just know it's coming and it's going to eat you alive? You ever been there? Was I the only one? And I remember I just got on my knees and spontaneously, without even thinking, I just started thanking God. It was really interesting. I was actually surprised at myself. I just started thanking him. I didn't feel it. I was sad. But I also knew in my spirit that I had to just thank him. Because he was going to give me everything I needed, even though I didn't know what I needed yet. That's what Jesus is saying. That's what he's saying. There are a million ways. There are so many ways you could stand in the same position. But there's one way that if you follow it and you activate it, you commit yourself to those fundamentals, you will know the game of faith. And it'll just come when you need it. And it'll just start changing that, your family. It's really cool. It's really cool when it happens. I literally can think of 20. I remember my mom and I, we had, as a pastor, we had to visit some folks in the hospital. And it was probably my first time I had to go as pastor. It was years ago. And there was a woman who was dying, and the family started fighting. Because they, when someone dies, a lot of estranged people come. Have you ever seen that? And they start like beating each other up, and there's like siblings that haven't seen each other in 7 years, and they're taking cheap shots. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what to do. I was like, this family's nuts. And I'm not nuts. And I don't know how to deal with this. So it put me back a little. Has that ever happened to you? It was intense. Like one lady took a shot at the other lady, and it was deep. It was like jugular. And I'm like, the lady's dying, like your sister's dying. Why are you throwing shoes at each other? Then I never forget, my mom just turned, and she goes, enough now. She goes, okay, we're not doing that. This is what we're going to do. She goes, okay, everyone come in the huddle. She huddled the ladies. I've never seen anything like it. No, it was wild. She goes, okay, now we're going to hold hands. It was a true story. I was like, okay. Even me, I didn't know what to do. We're going to hold hands. She goes, okay. She goes, yeah. Over the next 2 days, it's going to be a very tough season. She goes, but none of you are going to fight. None of you are going to say anything. She was literally talking to kids. You're not going to do this. You're going to forgive her. She's going to forgive you. And what we're going to do is we're going to pray over this family. It was the coolest thing. She got 6 women in line. 20 minutes later, they were all under the power of God. And they were hugging. I never forget that. Well, that makes a lot of sense because my mom has been following the Lord for a long time. So she knows those fundamentals. I was new at pastoral care, so I had to work on them. But she knew them. She had done them for 40 years. So she had been in those rooms before, and she knew the drill. She prays every day. If you know my mom, she prays every day. She always says that you always know God's presence if it brings peace and harmony. And so literally that came out of her mouth. She was like, we're not going to do anything that brings chaos or division. We're only going to do things that bring us together. That's what Jesus is saying. He's saying, follow me, man. Follow me. Walk the same road as me. And if you do that, he's saying to you, I will come through you. We always say that we're the hands and feet of Jesus. When we decide to be, guess what happens? He shows up. He shows up in a big, big way. I'm done preaching.